Hey folks, before we get to the episode, I want to invite you to this month's International Directors Meetup, our monthly gathering of directors and theater makers from around the world. It's a space to share experiences, trade advice, and find support in what can often be a pretty isolating role. You can come and go as you need, drop in late, leave early, whatever fits your schedule. It's simply a chance to set aside time each month to sit alongside others who understand the work. For dates, times, and details, head to boardofdirectors.world and pull up a chair at the table. Join the board. I want to tell you a little story before we get into this conversation. I'm part of a WhatsApp group that my dear friend and mentor Jean-Guy Lecat started just recently. There were over 70 directors, designers, and makers in there from every corner of the world. It's a beautiful chaos of ideas and opinions and provocations, which means, of course, that I almost never look at it. It's just too much. But every now and then, someone finds their way through all that noise and reaches out directly. And that's how I met today's guest, Suman Mukhopadhyay. He messaged me out of the blue, and within minutes, I felt like I was talking to someone I'd known for years. We come from totally different geographies, different theatrical traditions, different generations even. And yet the overlap in our obsession was uncanny. The role of the director, the shape of a rehearsal room, the way family history leaves fingerprints on your work, the way travel changes you, the way film and theater keep arguing and seducing each other. We just kept connecting. Suman has had this astonishingly rich life in Kolkata's theater world, in cinema, and across international platforms. But what struck me most was the way he thinks. There's a clarity and a curiosity in him that feels rare, and a generosity that makes you want to go deeper, stay longer. So today you're going to hear a wide-ranging conversation, personal, historical, artistic. One that moves from family to politics to aesthetics to the quiet internal shifts that make someone become a director in the first place. It's one of those interviews I finished and I thought, I'm really glad I get to share this one. Here's my conversation with Suman Mukhopadhyay. So I wanted to dig deeper into something that you mentioned that I was fascinated by the last time we talked, and that your family had a traveling theater. And my grandmother was a Broadway actress, and my mom's side of the family owned a circus. And it's one of those things where, like, if I ended up being a lawyer or an engineer, I'd be the black sheep of the family. But I didn't live in a green room, and I didn't, grow up with, your father. I didn't grow up in that world. So I'd love to hear more about that, about what that was to be in that world and the expectation on you, if there was an expectation on you to continue the family lineage.
Yeah, I think that I was on stage from when I'm 2 years old, maybe earlier than that, because as I had been told by my father and mother that the first time I was on stage, it is on my father's shoulder, holding a red flag, singing the May Day song in a play which is adapted from Gorky's Mother. Okay.
Wow.
So many, big canvas, so that was, and that performance was happening somewhere in the village. And in the 1968, late 60s. And and then I used to travel with my family's, my father's group, which is not a family troupe, but my father's kind of the man who organized this group, who brought the actors, musicians, singers. And then there's an ensemble which went around playing different kind of plays, and as as also part of that the troupe, my mother also used to travel, sometimes singing songs, and I was on the lap, and then going around all around in the small villages to the towns. It's like, going, that the Bergman theater in that film,
Mm-hmm.
you're going with this carriage, but we don't have carriage like that. We had buses, and sometimes we travel in trains. But it was like I think that my entire theater career, my theater aesthetics, my connection with the people, different kind of people came through that, that childhood, that youth, which was very much connected to the people's theater, or and connected to the people, the community, and engaging myself with a very, very live and communicative audience, and what we are seeking for a long time in our theater, that let's be more interactive.
Yeah.
Let's gets our punch and get punched back from performance.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I think that was the basic fundamentals I was brought up in my theater training.
Was there a time when it wasn't just something that your family did, but something that you wanted to do? Like, was it just a natural flow of things, or did you kind of go like, oh no, this is it. I'm going to do this. I want to do this for my own reasons, not because it's passed down and there's a heritage there, I guess, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think my father, as you mentioned about the black sheep at the very beginning, the introduction, I think my father was actually the black sheep in the family, because the family, which is a very extended family, I came from a small village also. It's not the kind of village, but in between village and town. It's like a small town, very small town, but it's a huge family. And the family of lawyers, scientists, then also priests, lot of religion, Hindu religion. And it was a strange concoction of different kind of personalities from, and then my father was the only person who kind of came out and became a very strong performative person, and then also political, at the same time, very politically engaged with the social movements, with the political movements. And then I remember he told me that when he was getting married, he asked his friends to give a gift of Brechton Theatre. So that was 1966, 64, 65. He got married and he asked his friends, you are planning to give me something. Don't give me rubbish and, rubbish things, but give me this book. I'm looking for this book, Brechton Theatre, and very expensive. I cannot buy it from my small salary. So if you're collecting money. So I think that was his introduction to Brecht, which I still holding that book with me, that I still hold that book from 1964.
You've done a lot of Brecht as well. I've seen that you keep coming back to it. Yeah.
And I saw that he underlined the book, and a lot of because it's a John Willett translation. I remember it's quite a little complicated. But yes, but I never, I was completely enamored with this life, with these traveling players, like this Theo Angelopoulos film, Traveling Players.
Yeah.
And yes, I kind of never thought of doing something else, from I think when I'm 12 years old, or maybe 11, 12, 13, 14. And I've completely decided that I will be doing theater. I'll be performing. I'll be in theater. And that was absolutely went, my father really liked it. I think that nobody else kind of the family ever questioned that. They never asked me to do anything else. So I kind of got slowly involved into the kind of theater we used to do. But then my training, coming to USA in 1991, changed the entire perception again of theater training and perception of theater.
When did you? It may not be as a hard line as I'm imagining it, but when did film become a thing also? That was like, oh, I can also do this, and I can go back and forth between the two. But like, obviously, at some point, you fell in love and said, like, I'm going to do that for a little while.
Very interesting question, because throughout my school life, I was watching this crass Hindi Bollywood films. They're called Bollywood now, but that time they were like Bombay Hindi films. The Bollywood is a much later coinage.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of offshoot of Hollywood. But so I've been watching films, and slowly from those films of very highly commercial films with song and fight. Slowly, I started looking at. I remember telling this story to Robert Redford. This is an amazing story. That when I met him in San Francisco International Film Festival, my second film was there in the festival. I met him the part of the organizing committee or somebody. That I told him, you changed my life. Then why? Hell, how? Look, I was going for uh, my examination, the final high school examination for mathematics. I was very weak in mathematics, but I was quite tense. The day before the mathematics, I'm going for the final round off with the teacher, final revision. And when I was going to his house, I saw this in the Metro Cinema in the morning show. All the President's Men were
I
playing.
just watched that again recently. I just watched that recently.
Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
And then the fight between the evil and the and the holy started. Should I go to the revision because I'm weak in mathematics, the final examination, but finally the evil won. I got a ticket and went to watch the film. But fortunately enough, that was the last examination of mathematics I gave, and he scored the highest in that examination. And so I told him that changed my life because I never had to sit for any mathematics again. And I can prove that watching President's Men helped to get the highest marks in my mathematics. So I think that's how I started. And so, but cinema was there but I had a natural, inroads to the theatrical world, to the backstage of theater, to the kitchen of theater, and yeah. So and then slowly I started training myself in cinema much later, late 90s, early 90s. From that point of time, so it started. Bergman was also one of my favorite filmmakers, and now you see many directors are doing working both the professions, but that is a completely different story. But because I remember my father gifting a small 8mm camera when I just became 18, and that was also I started filming strange things, and that was a kind of a prelude to my filmmaking, because he went to US and brought the small camera.
That's okay. Okay, so I go back and forth on this all the time. I am teaching at an institution, and I've been in institutions for a while, and I go back and forth on does anybody need training? Do they need to have like, not to say that like I know you have your training, but like the thing of like a camera, like giving a camera to somebody, it democratizes things in a way to say like, well, now because you don't know all of the things, you got to experiment, you got to play, and you got to do the things you wanted to do. And now everybody with the phone, everybody can be a filmmaker. And I'm wondering the same thing about theater as well. I mean, obviously people don't have an opportunity to see theater as much. With your family's company, you were taking theater to them. So theater may have seemed more accessible, more the boundaries to get into theater were probably less. And just like getting into being a filmmaker is easier to do. And I wonder if I ask this question every single day when I go to work, like, am I helping them? Am I making them better? Or am I putting barriers in the way for them to have to hurdle to then try to get back to who they naturally are as a human being? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting perspective too, because what I felt that that in our kind of theater practice when we started, and the people who used to come and join us as theater practitioners, musicians, they mostly absolutely have no knowledge of anything. So these groups, my father or somebody senior in this group became the first trainer to them, how to start with voice, the pitching, and the body use of physicality and everything. They're so novice, absolutely no knowledge about theater. But then they slowly grow up into somebody with his talent, or kind of more dedication. They became actors, performers, directors. And then and then I found that we have a so different kind. We never had any theatre schools in India. There's one theatre school which was in Delhi called National School of Drama, but that is completely Hindi centric. Very much central. People from all the regions go to the school. They're forced to speak in national language, which I believe is not our national language. It is just one of the official languages, but most of the Indians speak that, so that became the national language. But we had so many languages, so this centrality of any institution is absolutely impossible in India. It has to be diverse. It has to be, every region has to be one theatre school, but they can learn their language. They can speak in their own language to theatre. If you take language from their theatre, then it is kind of taking a big section out of theatre. I'm not against anything called theatre without language, but that's one component of the entire aesthetical methodology. But if language is taken out of that, then so what happened? We all trained in the giving context of, learning every day from the stage, meeting different kind of audience. And the very much first day, when you are going to swim, when learning swimming, we remember our teachers used to throw us in the middle of the pond, and they will somehow know how to get back to the to the to the where the safe area is. So in case of theatre also, at the very beginning, you're thrown in front of like an audience, and you have to find a way to somehow perform something and come out. And so I think that we are trained in that way. It's the other way around, that you are practicing every day to reach that point. But if you see the Indian classical music, it is something different. A person, a sitarist or a player who is doing sarod, he has to go for training with a guru for 7 years before he come on stage. But in theatre, is, as you said, is a more accessible part of it. So we are thrown into that because anybody can do theatre. We think that anybody can do theatre. If he cannot play music, he cannot play anything else, cannot play a good football, cannot play cricket, go to theatre. That is the only place. You don't need any skills. We had this joke in our country that, we have been sent to theatre when you're good for nothing else, So, so
wow. Okay.
So that's one thing. So we start from that point. We generally land off with people, actors and actresses, or some people who actually are thrown away from all the fields and say that go to the theatre, because they take the people who have nothing else to do, nowhere else to do. So we started working with this kind of people, and they are kind of trained in to become, from that rank, that without any confidence, they got kicked out of all the circuits, and they come to do theatre because, so I think that was another way of looking at performance from this aspect. But the other aspect, you go to a theatre school, slowly grow up, and be ready for the audience. So these are the two, way of looking at the methodology, or I think so that we have in our theatre always throughout India. One is the classical training, like Kudiyattam, Kathakali, Odissi, the dance form, the theatrical form, which are very regimented, which are very, you have to go through a very, very stern methodology, timing, and then they become a performer. The other way is the very, very folk-oriented performance, which is very open. It is completely open. Anybody can come in and start training. So these two converge in a certain kind of modernity, all these two styles, and then become the modern Indian theatre. They started to, there's a confluence which started happening, that the classical people started, become little malleable, meeting the folk people. The folk people are always, open to anything. So they are kind of getting a little bit habituated with the discipline, with the regimentation of the classical thing. So both these together converged and actually created the post-independent Indian modern theatre.
Hmm. Is it that, because India is an enormous country with a lot of people, obviously, that's an understatement to say the least, but as you're saying that, every state has many languages, not just one language. There's how many dozens and hundreds of languages that are there. Is it also that there's, beyond the classical forms, is it also that there's almost a different style per state or a different style per language as well? Did you find?
Yes, I think it is strange that every state, even the states which are lying side by side, they completely contrast in their cultural habits, in their religious habits, in the cultural style, the language. Suppose the Northeast India, like the which is very close to our part of India. I come from the Eastern India, Bengal, and then we have Northeast India, which is very farther and kind of bordering on China and Myanmar. They have a completely different way of physicality in terms of they're very close to the martial arts, very strong tradition of warrior like. And one of the directors who are very well known, even Robert Wilson and this guy called Ratan Thiam, which has passed away few days ago, who was presented in BAM in the next web festival. Ratan Thiam and Robert Wilson also had a lot of things in common, and Ratan used to work in this strong martial arts form, which is coming from Manipur. So, and they have a completely different, and Bengal, the language is different, the Manipuri's language is different. So I think that this diversity, this whole huge plethora of elements which is coming from the society, coming from the culture, is actually the essence of the ethos of Indian theatre, and want us to get it to. And I think that what you said, that we are the one side is very strong training, which is giving you a very regimented. I know when I was in 90s coming to US and what Badishnikov doing contemporary dance, when he was completely trained in the Russian ballet, and then he's breaking away. So I think that those kind of practice is very much, there in the Indian, scenario, when this very regimented classical artist coming out and trying to make a sense of his or her art in this with the work of the community. That became the radical force of, I would say, the radical. It evolved. It gave, a birth to a radical form of performance, which I think defines the Indian modernity, defines the Indian modern theatre. And yes.
Okay. We may want to cut this out of the podcast here because we're both going to talk about National School of Drama. I've only been a visitor there, but it was one of the things where I, as you speak about this more, I think about it of going to try and make a national school of drama when there are all of those modalities, unless you have, teachers of all of those trainings coming in to try and find some kind of hybrid new form, then for the lack of a better word, there is a colonial thought of going well, then we can make it a school of drama that represents India, but one version, just the capital version of that, instead of saying but how do we take a little bit of this and a little bit of that without negating the history and the culture of these things, but create something coming together and moving forward. Yeah, you're speaking about that, and I'm realizing all of the problems around that now. Because I feel like that, for the majority of people outside of South Asia, or maybe even Southeast Asia in terms of Singapore, we're only going to know Kathakali or Kuriatam or Odissi or something like that, but we're not seeing, as you're saying, the local, the folk art, or even contemporary Indian playwrights or directors or plays that have that tradition of things. And I mean, from what I have seen, it's a great loss to the world to not have that. But I also wonder, because it is so not localized, but because unless you do have that context of what it is to get there, does it then just become quote unquote exotic? And because, oh, I don't know what that is, it's like, people love Kathakali because of the makeup and the costumes and all that, but we don't get the underlying story unless you truly live in that and study that. So, yeah, I don't know.
Exactly. Like, I think that I was meeting one of the leading theater artists of US. I don't want to name the person because that might create something. She was telling me, interestingly, that when we are discussing about the festival selection, what are the selection would be. So there's a selection committee sitting together, and somebody was kind of commenting that we cannot take this. This is a folk art. So I think that that divides the world into
Yeah.
that if you can discriminate that this is folk art and this is classical art, then you are cutting out the probability, the great chance of bringing together of these two different kind of people together. As as I say that when we were discussing that in our discussion yesterday, when we're talking that that when Anne Bogart was meeting Suzuki, trying to bring together, completely different, true cultural, very different, very kind of, we are loggerheads. We are trying to find a way to how to communicate, how to engage, how to find a common way to. But finally, what happened after that? That was great. That I think that helped all the people and can also brought in new in a model of thinking. I think that kind of transpired into viewpoints, in one way, that's what I'm saying. And you are one of the major, uh, you know, uh, taking the forward the philosophy of viewpoints to the world. And you can also, this is my question to you, that what do you think how the viewpoints came about? It's one of the products of the meeting between Suzuki and Bogart?
Well, so it came out of 70s postmodern dance with Mary Overly. And she was questioning. I mean, everybody was questioning dance at that time, of going like, well, what is dance? And I think somebody, the best, I love this description of what dance is shape plus movement over time, which means if I'm standing on stage breathing, I'm dancing, which of course anybody who lives outside of a Western context understands that dance and theater are virtually the same thing everywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
It's just in the West where we bifurcate it so much. But Mary grew up in Montana, so these vast plains and mountains. And so she's looking out her window and seeing one view, and then looking out her window and seeing another view. And that's where the viewpoints, the terminology, came from. And it was very different than what we have from Anne moving forward. It was 6: space, shape, time, emotion, movement, and story. And Anne removed story and emotion because she thought that actors would get too caught up in those things, and they usually do. So she adapted it and went further with that. But it became a thing where what is it that every performer in every country, in every context, or in every genre has to deal with? Well, every performer has to deal with space, and they have to deal with time. And if you can break that down, then you can start to break down some barriers of understanding and talking and doing something. Like how would you work with Baryshnikov and a juggler and inserts any other classical whatever there, and a comedian artist and whatever? Well, everybody understands tempo. Everybody understands spatial relationship. And it's been a thing where I think I've talked about this before, of whenever I first started teaching, I was seen as the American director coming in with an American acting methodology, and that for the week while I was there, they would take on the costume of this American methodology, and then they would take it off when I left. And I was like, no, but this is not an American methodology at all. This exists right here. When I leave, it's still going to be here, whether you use it or not. Like tempo exists in Vietnam and Japan and, South Africa. And I realized that, of course, white guy coming in, speaking English, having a translator, the whole ethos of that said, oh, I'm bringing in Stanislavski. Oh, I'm bringing in Strasberg. Oh, I'm bringing in this thing that was created somewhere else. And it took me a while to realize that just by breaking down the language barrier, not that there's nothing simple about that, but going and just learning 9 words in the language. If I said tempo in Vietnamese, they heard the English word translated for them. But if I learned the word tempo in Vietnamese, then all of a sudden it clicked in their minds. And I had this lovely opportunity to spend 10 years in Singapore just with this multicultural society with students from all over the world who were coming in to train with us, to keep playing with language and playing with the viewpoints. And I was doing a production of Macbeth, and the cast consisted of a Tamil-speaking actress, a French actor, a Tagalog-speaking actress, a Chinese-speaking actress, a Korean-speaking actress, and an Australian. And so I said for one rehearsal, I said, let's just do this for fun. I want you to speak in your mother tongue. I want you to do your part in your mother tongue. And I know you're going to have to translate, and I know it's not going to be exactly Shakespeare or whatever, but one, the listening was immediately different because everybody didn't have their cues because they're getting it in a different language. But what it also meant was that I could side coach them because I had translations of every single one's mother tongue. And so I could tell the Lady Macbeth in Tamil to play with spatial relationship. And all of a sudden, like hearing that word in Tamil to her, she was playing with spatial relationship as an Indian actress would, not just as an actress would. And it was the most fascinating thing for me to see how much obviously English is a hindrance for a lot of things, but also that the connotations culturally in the language touched on something with them. Even the Australian and the French speaking actor of just like, oh, okay, yeah, understanding what that is. It was a beautiful moment, and the production. We didn't perform it in the mother tongue, but like we kept having more and more rehearsals. And then, okay, now trying to keep that. How do we keep that, guys? How do we move that forward, going back into Shakespeare's language? It was one of the best productions I've ever done. And I've not had an opportunity to have that many languages in the room since then.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. That's really, I can understand the electricity inside the room.
Yeah.
I think that when we watched Brooks Mahabharata first time, and when they was traveling in India with the film, they couldn't come with the show, but they came with some of the actors and actresses to work with us in different cities. It was different, and I saw that how Brooke has maintained of course the language is English, we cannot, but how much less pressure on language was used when after man is coming from the Shakespearean tradition of language to kind of trying to find an universal language which might communicate with a sense. Like in India also, if you see that we communicate to each other. This entire, when I was going to South India, where I don't know their language and then don't know my language, the language we speak is in English, So I would say the English can be our national language, not Hindi, because we speak in that language. And we communicate with sign languages, that's part of our culture again, because we are habituated for thousands of years live with this diversity, which the unknown, which the person from south or person from north or person from deep northeast, we are not, we don't know each other's language. That was that the civilization evolved in our country. I think that's important. So a performance code was created, which is very significantly. But what you mentioned just the last 5 minutes, that we are enamored with a certain kind of classicism, or which is exotica, in terms of that in Kathakali, South India, the other art forms, but it never been percolated to the contemporary performance. There are some of them, like we have some directors who actually traveled widely, but again through the kind of central government and their policies. So we rarely, for me as a director working for 35 years, if I not taking those 20 years of my childhood, then if I say that I have really could take my work to a global perspective. Very rarely Indian directors who are worked very strongly in Indian subcontinent as could take their work to a global audience. That's strange. I don't know, is this the policy of the West, what to bring to the East, what to bring to the West from East, or it is the red tapeism of the government officials who decided what to send across
Of course.
to across the borders. So I think that this has been going on since many years, with all the South Asian departments in different American universities are so strong, like Chicago, even in the Columbia University, the Mesas, then many other, like in Berkeley, the strong South Asian Institute. But if you see that the representation of the South Asian performance is mostly dance, which is the classical dance forms, but never, very rarely, you see a theater performance coming through the South Asian departments.
Yeah. Is it? I'm curious about. I mean, obviously, you've worked all over. The audience. I mean, obviously, this is a silly question. The difference between an audience in Kolkata and an audience in Jersey, or an audience in New York, or say Berkeley. The humor, the patience. Can you speak about, like, when doing a show in Kolkata versus doing a show in Jersey, or wherever you're going to do a show, like how you have to change the barometer or the temperature in the room to, I don't want to say, I mean, I never want to speak down to the audience. You know the audience is my great love, but how do you capture the feeling of the audience without talking down to them and wanting to lift them up and do you bring them to the work, or do you bring the work to them? I guess it may be kind of when thinking about the audience.
To tell you very honestly, when I was working for an audience who knows the language, who knows the cultural milieu or the cultural nuances, it is much easier. Even if you see that the diaspora is huge in New Jersey, the Indian diaspora or the Bangladeshi diaspora, who have kind of share a lot of history, culture, and politics. So if you are speaking to them, it is something, you are like doing a performance as in Kolkata, although they have, the most of the people who have the diasporic nostalgia. Those are the people who are taking it forward. But I am very, very curious about the fact, what is the next generation, next two generations doing? Are they coming into this kind of so-called nostalgic, something host and the host country gave us, the people who came here in 1960s or 70s, they're bringing that that nostalgia. But after that, I think that it never evolved. What I would say, the South Asian performance code never evolved to bring in the contemporary issues of existence while we are. So I think that's the one way to integrate the American theater and the so-called the huge diaspora which is there, to find a community where we can share these, issues, share these aspects. I'm not talking about the level of Broadway or a huge. I'm just talking about the very because we are there at theater who are people who are interested in community work. They're trying to do, and I think the only way theater can survive, not in these big machineries of theater, but in a small community perspective or in a discussion. As we are discussing, I suddenly remembered there's an adaptation of Ames Caesar's The Tempest. And it is interesting, when I was a student, there's two tempests running at the same time. One is the public theater, the huge, expensive tempest with the storm and the drowning of the ship at the very beginning, and that scenography huge. But then Ames Caesar came to one of the small theaters, and I saw that the first scene was done so simply. The Scaliban is holding a small ship on his head, and Prospero is moving his magic wand, and all the people are just shaking the body physically as a storm is coming, and then the magic wand hits the boat. The boat falls down from Caliban, and everybody falls down, and this shipwreck happened. I found that theater is a theater which we are, that makes sense to me more than huge machinery showing, huge stuff, of theater. I think that more simple, the theater language, this more communicates to and it takes a deeper audience and to get a more broader audience. And that's how we did, as I told you before, that our theater is setting up. It's all makeshift. It's very makeshift aesthetics we are brought up in. You come there, set up a stage, and after that, set up your lights, costume, and the audience is peeping through the small doors,
curtain,
looking at your makeup and doing dress. The
Yeah.
women has to be hidden because they're other curious people. So I think that then you go on stage with that, and then you perform and coming back on the same day, packing up all the dress. I think that kind of aesthetics that helped us to move from communities to communities very easily. At the same time, we are stuck with one kind of aesthetics which never let our technicians grow. Or, the actors are very much full of their body memory of audience, their memory with the audience, the interaction with the audience, but it never got tested in much more, what I would say, in a more subtle way. That if you take, so I will tell you an experience of an American director, Leonardo Sapiro, coming to do the end game with our actors, and there was a big fight. It is a fight of culture, fight of aesthetics, because I will blame both of them for that. But Sapiro was not very, very keen to understand the understanding of the performers, ham, clove, and nag and nell. He's trying to impose certain some kind of Western aesthetics on them about sound, about movement, and they are resisting that. So I think that communication never happened. Firstly, the burden of a text by Samuel Beckett, a difficult text by
For anybody.
for anybody doing Endgame, then from English to the strange Bengali translation. Okay, and then actors are not very keen to, just to. Another thing what happened, as I told you at the very beginning, they come the very fundamental knowledge, elementary knowledge. So they depend on the director very much, that he will give them a lot of guidance. He or she will give them a lot of guidance to make me an actor, make me a performer. And then when these actors, this American director came, they thought that he has all the answers to Beckett. And Leo is telling me as assistant director, Suman, I also don't know what Beckett meant here. I am trying to search. So why do they think that I have all the answers? And that's their training. They thought the guru have all the answers, and he will know. So when Leo is saying, I don't know, let's find out together. And that becomes a kind of why this guy was not prepared enough. And no, that is not true. I told the actors, they're not true. He's reading his autobiography. He's reading his diaries. That's one way of methodology to create yourself, the world you want to take in. And otherwise that, this completely clash of cultures, that's what I'm saying, that happened in 1994. I remember this exercise, and we couldn't take the actors, convince them to do another performance. Only for one performance happened. Only one performance happened, and they were not ready to do another performance. They told, we didn't understand anything what we are doing. I'm looking. They said that we didn't understand anything about it. So I think we have stories like this. But it was mostly, I told Leo, you cannot be so harsh on them. They're very senior actors. They're directors. But I don't know why at that point of time they're so hell-bent to get the answers from the director. They're themselves directors. They could have found out, their own way and try to collaborate. So I think that the very beginning, some kind of barrier was created, and it never happened. And this happened again when I was a child. The German director Fritz Benewitz, he came. He's a very famous Brecht specialist who came to India. He actually directed in National School of Drama in New Delhi. He came to do the life of Galileo with a huge ensemble in Bengal. And the same thing happened, they started because he was trying to get a Brechtian way to do the play. And the actor, the main actor, is also one of the legendary actors of India. He was resisting. He was saying, I know my audience. You only know Brecht. Right. Yeah. So I think that these are the very interesting, I would say, cultural, but I would say, dynamics you're part of.
I've seen so many intercultural productions, or quote unquote intercultural productions, fail because it is. But I want to do intercultural, but really what I want you to do is my culture. I really like, why can't I use your Indian body to do my Western play? Correct. Versus going like, no.
Completely understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I've seen so many of these, but I've also seen some that are remarkable and point toward a way of future that, like, my God, if I could do that, if I could be a part of that, if I could see that all the time, and Singapore was one of those places where, like, obviously the hybridity of that entire culture is one of those things. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes it was a little appropriative. A lot of time it was very appreciative. But, I'm highly influenced by the Balinese culture. And while I will never do a Balinese play, the ethos and the aesthetic and the questions that they're asking and the whys behind those things heavily inform the way that I make my theater, and my theater then looks different because of that. And, when, say, a Robert Wilson goes to Indonesia and does Ilagaligo, it's, how do we take in, and it's one of those things where, like, he's a director that is very like, or he was a director that was very like, you'll do this and you'll do that and you'll do that, which is not an Indonesian aesthetic very much.
Yes,
you'll do this and you'll do this and you'll do this. And what made the production beautiful, and what made a lot of his collaborations beautiful with that, was going, you're an artist that is on my same level of being precise and beautiful and having this cultural knowledge. I want to see what you do, and I want to see how I can meet you there instead of you come toward me or I come toward you. How do we meet together with that? And those are when they always work. But otherwise, when you're coming in and saying, like, why can't you get it? Why can't you get the sounds? It's like,
yes, exactly.
What are your sounds? I would love to hear your sounds.
Yeah. Yes, I remember the first chapter of Bogart's book, being a director, when he said the violence of the director has to say that stop there, no exactly. More. So, that was very interesting. Yeah.
We have a mutual friend in Jean-Guy Lecat, who, if my audience doesn't know who Jean-Guy Lecat, stop the podcast right now and go find out, because highly, highly influential in my life, in a lot of people's lives. And we we didn't even meet in the group, but we were a part of a group, a WhatsApp group, a very large WhatsApp group. That Jean-Guy is, I feel like Jean-Guy is trying to bring together all of these people in his life to say, carry on. I feel he knows that he is getting up there, and really wanting to continue this work that he's done. Can you tell me about when you first met him and what that relationship and working like is like?
Yeah, John Gee is I was always kind of being when he's really when I revere him for his kind of work, for his want to be with the people, meet people, bring people together. So I met him when I went to this La Mama Umbria workshop, which happens in Spoleto in Italy. So I met him there, and from there we started our friendship. Then we are in a project we wanted to create together, which between Norway, India, France, and England, which never kind of happened. But we did like 2 years of work for that project to get the grant, which never happened.
The story of many theater makers' lives, by the way.
Yes, yeah. We are traveling to different places. We got a small grant from Norwegian Cultural Institute to this research, which enabled John Gee to come to Norway, me to come to Norway. Then we go to Paris. So all this together, but that project never came out. So the Day of the Light. Light of the Day, and then the project never happened. But we are so dejected after that. But I remember John Gee in the Prague Quadrennial. I was there as a delegate, and John Gee was one of the jury for the student scenography test. There's I think that year the play was King Lear. And all the students, scenography students from all over the world did a small scenographic model of Lear. And so John Gee told, why don't you come with me as go to do this juror job? So I was walking with him. He was commenting, saying, how do you like it? At the very end, he said that, what do you find difficult with all these models? I said, yeah, I think they're, I don't know. I'm not very sure, John Gee. You tell me. But they lack actors. There's no space for actors in all these spaces. It is only the scenographer standing there. I don't see any space for actors. So that's why I know, that's his philosophy. And when he said that in the La Mama workshop that, we have to change, we have to bring that back to the Greek theater of equality. From there, that his philosophy of modifying the spaces, what he did till now, from Harvey Theatre to La Mama to all these things, they create that sense of that inclusivity. I think that's very important today's theatre, that talk to the audience and bring them in, as you said, that go to them, speak to them, because they are stuck within their phone, within their because it is the pressure of the society, of course, the pressure of the capitalist world, or what can any of the world that. And so I think that it has to be strongly political to this theatre at the same time. And you have to know how to work within the communities, go within them, discuss with them. As when I was doing a play, I took my entire group, over 50 people, young stars with me, trying to do a play. And I took them, everybody. I saw that for the very first week of rehearsal, I saw that everybody stuck with their urban, they're all stuck with the urban habits of physicality. So, and that play needs to break away from that. But I have find no way that you can do them, do it through any theory which can break that. So I took them, the entire team, to a small village, like a few kilometers away, where this famous dance form called Chow. Chow is a martial arts form, dance form. it is nothing. The play has nothing to do with chow. It is only to they practice on the banks of river, on the sand. So I let the guru take them, all 50 of them, and just jump on the sand, for the entire 2 hours in the morning, um, trying to get chow, but actually is jumping on the sand and get the sunlight, and the sweat. And I can saw that slowly the urbanity is melting away from the body, because they're just jumping on the sand and under the sun, not in air conditioned room. And that actually, and I saw them rehearse this martial art in the middle of the village, and the whole village is watching, coming in, going out, somebody coming back from market with a bag, commenting on the performance. You are not doing that right. And the performer is speaking to the man from the space. You don't know anything about this art, what are you saying? I've seen this art for the last 20 years, whatever it is. And then, this conversation in the community, I think that's completely impossible to reach this point unless it is part of your cultural growth, or you are growing through this. For our who practice art in urban situations are very difficult to get back. That will be, as you said, getting a multicultural or intercultural performance happening. It is not in our blood. It is much more that. But taking those group of 50 people, coming back to the city again, so they are now more emancipated. Their bodies out of certain small, toxic things which have been invaded in their cells, and I think that brought the energy in my performance, the energy I was looking for.
I when you were speaking about that, I was thinking of the first time I went to Avignon Festival in France.
I never went there.
It's simultaneously the most maddening, crazy experience, but also beautiful work. Depending can be really beautiful work, but also maddening, crazy things. I was struck because something that was presented, I think it was a Romeo Castellucci performance, which can be very divisive for audiences. An audience member in the way back at the back of the theater marched down these this platform risers. So the kind of boom, 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 metal risers, marched down to the front of the stage through his playbill, through his program onto the stage, and then marched back up. Okay. And I was like, you can do that? Like, you don't just have to sit here quietly not liking something like we do in America. We leave during intermission and then, crap about it later on. Like, you can actually say you don't like something in the middle of it. But of course, in street theater everywhere, that we're talking about, it's just like, you're doing it wrong, is that kind of, is a beautiful thing. And I wonder how much is lost for an actor to, obviously I have huge problems with the concept of the fourth wall anyway. But what is lost of that disconnect between I'm doing this for somebody. And, if you ever have an opportunity to see theater for a young audience or children's theater, children don't lie. Like, they'll let you know if they like the show or they don't like the show, if they have questions about the show or they've checked out. But in the theater, because of this, proscenium, this colonial idea of being in a space, in a seat, and this is mine, and I come here between 8 and 10. We will sit there and suffer in silence rather than let ourselves be known.
Correct.
Even if when somebody gets up, like, everybody looks at that person, like, even if you're not liking the show, you'll watch that person get up and go, I can't believe they're getting up and leaving the show. I hate it too, but I'm going to sit here.
Yeah. I align with that, but I was just, that collection of interviews which Anne did, is an amazing collection of interviews. And when she was interviewing the opera director, the death of Klinghoffer, and the opera director who is now working from Los Angeles or San Francisco, a very, very senior one. I'm just forgetting his name just right now. Forget his name. So he was talking about this Greek play which he did during the Iraq War, and how
Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers.
Yes,
Peter
yes, yes, yes.
Sellers.
Yeah.
So I watched Peter Sellers in 1991, that famous opera Death of a Klinghoffer, which is also very political, and he's immensely political. And there's experience of how people walked out, spitting, towards the audience, the actors, and how actors actually face that, people just some mass exodus of people, and not only exodus, they're not only walking away, they're also saying bad things, that was quite an I never heard of this kind of things in American theater. It's rare.
It's very rare. I've never seen it.
Mm.
I've never experienced it. Yeah.
Exactly. I remember Brecht was mentioning that when he was doing Bal, it's one of the first plays, and people, really abused him for that, But anyway, there are some areas of some domains of this kind of very Shakespearean experience, like Globe Theatre, what we heard about it, that people. But what you said is very important, that, but it is very difficult to come to that space in today's world to create that kind of, it is like, that my dinner with Andre situation where where this man is talking about this strange thing, and while he's saying that, look, I stay in the city, I have to do this, I have to earn my living, I cannot have the privilege of going around in the very Grotowskian model to different small community and living there for 1 year, and then coming about with the strange ideas about theater and performance, rituals, living. Yeah, I think that's a very nice way to put together the difference of opinions. I think Louis, this was ever performed in the New York. Do you know this history of performance? Okay.
Yeah. I know that film well because I
I watched the film,
yeah.
but is there any live performance which happened?
Oh no, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm asking about that. Yeah.
No, I mean, you could. I mean, obviously, Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory, both theater people, of course. Why wouldn't they do that? I was. It's funny because you've like hit all the great hits of my life of saying like, what were my influences? Well, at a very early age, I got a VHS tape of the Mahabharata of Brooks' Mahabharata, and I fell in love with that. And I was like, oh, I want to work with Peter Brook. And then I saw My Dinner with Andre, and I fell in love with Grotowski. And then I spent a good part of my life going in that direction. So then I went to the Work Center Grotowski in Italy, and I've studied there. And then I've obviously, through Jean-Guy, I've got that kind of Brooke connection as well. And having those kind of two paths in my life, it's funny that you mentioned that today. So when we're talking about this audience that this quiet audience, this quiet Western audience who will not make themselves known, when you're standing with an actor, or you're in rehearsal with an actor, you're the actor's first audience. What is it? What do you need to do? How do you need to transform for them so that they've got all the possibilities of that audience that they're going to have in front of them? And is it different with working with a Western audience or Western actor and, or Indian actor, Indian audience? Do you become a different director in the room, or is there something or commonalities that you bring to both?
Yeah, I have to, because I think that because that's my experience of, as I mentioned very early in our discussion, that my experience with it actually watching different kind of people, like extreme village, very deep village, then Mafsal towns, cities, even in the the belt of workers, industrial workers, then go to the deep rural agrarian culture. So I think that this experience of watching them, being within them, seeing my father's play, or I am as a performer singing a song, a very political song, and I see that how the meaning of that political song changes from time to time. The people used to applaud in one section just 5 years back, and this after 5 years back, they're not even recognizing that part. They're applauding to something else. So you can write a kind of a creative journey through a song. That this song is a long 10-minute song which I used to sing, and which I hear other people sing before I used to sing that, my seniors. So I can actually write a history of Bengali theatre movement through that song. That how the political, sociological changes can be mapped through this song, because you can see the shift is happening. Because the appreciation of this song is changing. People used to clap and laugh in this area. Now they can't understand this at all. So there's a deep shift of political understanding. You can gauge from that. So I think that when I remember this entire movement of my childhood to youth to when I started doing serious theatre myself, I take this experience as a director and tell them. So every time we are going to do a performance in a village area, I tell my actors before the rehearsals, look, this is where this silence will not work. This silence will not work. This is for the urban people where the entire sound is under control. Everything is under control because there, you are doing in a fair place. There's thousands of things which will come in. So I think we have to be careful about this. Don't defocus your audience by trying to be forcing them your sense of pause, your sense of artistry in a situation where it will not work. So I have to wear different kind of hats, in different situations. If I go to a national theatre festival, suppose in within the context of Bengal, where they understand your language, you are different. Now I go to Kerala with a play which I did in Calcutta without any proper subtitling. So I will tell my actors, you are going to a place where no one will understand your language. So we have to either do another look at the text and delete out the portions which are not completely unnecessary as a very much linguistic humor. So I think that we take the decisions all the time about linguistic, the cultural difference, or the kind of audience we are going to. So I think that this experience, my experience actually works here by watching different kind of audience from the childhood.
Recently had on a guest who they're taking over for Ping Chong. Do you know Ping Chong?
Yes, of course.
So Ping Chong is retired and has a company, and instead of closing the company down, kind of handed the company over to another group of artists with the idea that here's an infrastructure, take it. But of course, you can't call it Ping Chong and Company anymore because Ping Chong is retired. And so they've renamed it and taken on. But they were talking about how they had found a book that Ping Chong had kept called The Ones That Got Away. And it was every single play that he never got to do, every single idea for a play that he never got to do. And it's like volumes and volumes, of course. Are there ones that got away from you that you would like to do? Or like, what are you, dream scenario, like what are you working on next year, 5 years from now?
Yeah. Many of them actually, I always wanted to do some site-specific performance. I know site-specific performances are very difficult in India because of firstly the weather, the insects, the sound, the audio quality is very high, and really lack of some really space. All the spaces have taken over. Like nothing is what is not a small inch has been left in India. Everything is taken over. Because it's the kind of people we have in our country. And so that those kind of things and experiments with site-specific places, then theater in a round, or even getting a space for myself to do theater. It's not like I don't want a 1,000-seater auditorium, but maybe 150-seater auditorium where I can do thousands of things, just a black box maybe where I can just do. And many plays which I wanted to make, including a adaptation of a very famous novel by Amitav Ghosh, who is also a novelist and now, of course, a green revolutionary working there. He's Hungry Tide. The Hungry Tide is one novel. I wanted to make a film, I wanted to make a theater then, but never happened. So all these things that maybe not as maybe thick as Ping Chong, but he's such a huge artist, but maybe a small diary with a lot of things which has gone by me. I watched Ping Chong part of that La Mama program
Yeah.
in 1991, and he came to our class actually to just give a master class. That time, yeah.
How do you decide? So when you're thinking of the Ghosh novel, how do you decide this is theater, this is film? Because I mean, you've adapted other great novels into films as well. What is it? Is it budgetary? Is it location, or is it just the audience? It needs to feel this, literally feel this, versus see this.
That's a huge question, and I really don't know how to articulate this answer. But I always feel that I think as a theatre practitioner, you read a lot of things. A lot of things we read, like articles to short stories to novels, contemporary novels, classic novels. Like right now, I'm suddenly started reading Idiot by Dostoevsky for no reason. But it is always not that every theater which you read, every play which you read, every novel which you read kind of prompts you or gives you that small unknown hunch that this, I can see it on stage. I can see it as a film. So I don't know when it's because the most of the novels I read, people think that they're more filmable material, but I did it from stage, and some of the things which I did for cinema, they thought this is not at all a cinematic material. Because so I think that's the hunch I faced, because one of my senior filmmakers told me when I made my last film, this is not a filmable material, this is more for stage or something for else, this is not film. So I thought that this is okay, that is mine. That's why even I think every director, every author has their own way of looking at a material which they think as cinema, which they think as film. So I really don't know that what actually provokes me, but maybe the visual quality, and also that this I can take to the people. This is the thing I can take to the people. This is the people I think as looking for some questions to be raised, which I want to reach through this novel, through this text. So, and people will find that, interestingly enough, when I was the beginning of the career, I was, choosing between two plays. And in our groups, which is a very democratic group, everyone will sit together and they will vote. After read out the play, they will vote that this play will be done or not. I was 32 or 33 when I was doing this. I adapted this novel called The Chronicles by the River Teesta, and the other is the Arthur Battle Brecht. So both are adaptations. So I read both the plays to my team, and most of them voted for Arthur because they think that this is much more will be close to our audience.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other one was very much critique of the left government which was ruling. And most of the artists who are coming from these groups that they have left orientations, they have some kind of, they think that they are serving that party. So I gathered them and asked them, is it because you're scared? Is it because you don't want to hurt your own comrades? You're not wanting to do this play? Because these plays severely critiques the contemporary government and the land reforms. So they were kind of mum, but this first time I became a fascist. I told, I will not do this play, I will do this play. So would you agree to do it? Then come. So after, some big fighting, they said, okay, if you are so convinced with this play, we will do this play together. And fortunately enough, that play became super duper, people liked it. People really loved it, and it became a very good. And then within 2 years, we did the other play, which completely didn't work with the people, the Arthur. Then I
See,
told
I
them,
told you guys. I told
yeah,
you.
I told you, and the actors really are convinced that yes, they thought this is that was a rural subject, a rural protagonist. Who will look after rural protagonist? This is 2000. 99, who will look at rural protagonists? Television has taken over. It's all about urbanity. Do some urban play. The Arthur, you have placed in an urban situation. This is very important. The language is very contemporary. Then I told, no, I think that you are getting into the wrong place. People need the answer. People are bored with this left government. They want somebody to speak up. And the theater artists are all keeping mum. They are not speaking against their friend government, but we need to speak. So I convinced them. And then when the process started, when they jumped at on the river, when I took them to training, they got into their blood. They got things into their guts. They got the politics of the play. They got the performance of the play. The performative politics of the play, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to ask this question. The political climate in which we live in now, in America and in India, being both of us political artists and being very political in ourselves, but also wanting to in our work. How do you? What am I trying to ask here? How do you thread the needle of saying what you want to say, speaking what you need to speak, and being cognizant of the landscape that is changing around us daily?
Yes. Yeah, I think we both are trying to answer the same question.
Trying to answer this question.
But I would say, but I really was very moved by the discussion in the same podcast you had with Anne Bogart. And at the very end, not maybe the similar question, but we kind of came to the same point where we have to look forward, how to take it forward. And I think that, yes, we have to hold strongly to our I'm now staying in US trying to find a work to do with I was working with the diaspora. I'm going back to India and I know things are getting more and more worse every day. Artists are stopped from working. I was stopped from getting auditoriums to do theaters because I protested against government ideology. So I think that it is happening all over the world. It is some states, in some nations, it is very bad. Some nations, it is like still people are grappling with the matters. They're fighting back. So I think there are people in USA or in India who are ready to fight back. And we have to identify with them, align with them, and we have to be with them together. I think the most important today, that as this G53 Bucharest WhatsApp group which came across, which brought you and me together through John Gee. So France, America, and I know that India, there are 5 people who are working in different parts, Japan, Singapore. I think that if these people stay together, united, knitted, and converse within each other, some way will come out of this. And I think that maybe it's very chaotic to have 53 people in a WhatsApp group. But I think that what's important is that it's creating subterranean dialogues. Maybe that's the mainstream, but the small dialogues we are having, maybe you and me, maybe somebody else with you. So I think those are very important to know about a community which and who kind of aligns their thoughts in their notions of performance and in their notions of a world they want to see in the
Okay, so to end on some good notes, some much happier notes. A student asked me this question in one of my classes that it really floored me. It's one of those questions where, like, I don't think she realized how deep of a question it was when she asked it, but I appreciate her asking this, which was, what is a play or what is a show that you have seen not necessarily done, but seen that changed your habits as a person, or changed your, maybe it was your going back in and making work, or just as a human being, something that changed you? There was Suman before and there was Suman afterwards.
Yes. I would say, you know, of course, something which happened in my youth very strongly, and then something which happened much later. In the theater, when I first watched dance theater, uh, Wuppertal Dance Theater's work,
Yeah.
Pina Bausch,
Yeah.
Cafe Mueller,
Mm.
it it kind of made, this kind of art is possible.
Yeah.
This kind of
You can do that?
You
Yeah.
can do that actually. And of
Yeah.
course, one thing I mentioned when we were discussing last day about that play, with when Anne Boger told me that when I watched that play in the cancer hospital,
Mm.
thousands of layers happening. I'm not very sure that I can understand the entire content of the play, because it was very American that time, something working. But still, I get that there's something, she was trying to make a point, which I understand, which is strong, which is hard hitting. I may not getting all the nuances, all the deeper layers, but still I can get it. But at the end of the performance, we students were given a chance to speak to her, ask some questions. So I asked her that, so many things are happening in different layers. I really don't know what to look at and what to hear. So many things are happening. So I think Anne Boger took a small pause and she asked me counter question. Do you ask this question when you are on the streets? There are thousands of visuals unfolding in front of you, thousands of audio, the audio materials which are hammering on you, but you are choosing, right? You are making selections from that chaos. So why don't you can make a selection on a stage? Why do you think somebody else will guide you to make this selection? And that is theater. So I think that concept, that perception was one thing and then I see that kind of performative when I Pina Bausch, the kind of politics and how less she can speak, and how actually through the imagery, through the thus two person holding each other, can make so many meaning. And I really that changed as a person after that. And yeah, then I watched another performance really by uh, Andrei Lubimov. Lubimov was performing. His group was Taganka Theatre was performing in Yale, Barasat. That Barasat kind of made me a different person next day. Yeah. So
I imagine
yeah.
so. That's a hell of a play.
Yeah, what a play. What a play, what a play.
Who's exciting you right now? Like, what directors are you, what work are you looking at and going, oh wow, how are they doing that? Or, I mean, this is my excuse to get more people in the podcast. So who are you excited by when you watch their work, or you're stunned by or confused by?
Recently, I have not seen much of the work on the West, but there are some people like somebody is doing really immersive content, and there are certain people who are doing, going to the people with their art. I'm more interested in that, and let's see what they're trying to do, because once upon a time, that form got a little hackneyed. It got stuck with its own aesthetics. But I think now today things are changing. So maybe I am also looking for. Maybe I will counter question you. Let me know what are the people you are. What kind of performance you are more interested than going into these huge shows with stars, rather than the people who are really making some noise in the community.
Yeah, I was actually having this conversation with students yesterday where they were saying, I was asking the question of, do they want to have a theater company? And no, they're saying they don't want a theater company, which I was fascinated by, because they want theater to change, but they somehow want to be a freelance director or a freelance actor and change the theater, which is never going to happen. But what I'm fascinated by and what I'm excited by is that theater makers in New York can't afford to get a theater. So they're just putting shows up in their apartment. And there's shows for 20 people. And of course, just by that decision alone, it's changing the scenography of things. It's changing the size and the scope of the play and the material. But it also means I can't ignore that there's somebody 3 feet away from me. So there's an audience there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do the entire Iliad in my apartment, somebody 3 feet away with 2 props. And that's what's exciting to me, actually, is that kind of work.
Really. Yeah, I think that's very important.
And there's so much that's happening. They're calling it living room theater, which is, I think, sounds a bit of a disgraceful name to give it, but that's what I'm excited by, and I'm hoping to get a couple of people who are doing that on the podcast too. Yeah.
To understand that what kind of aesthetics they're working on, like it is so important. Look, as I mentioned that I wanted to Hungry Tide as a film, and then as a theater, but then this entire paraphernalia of Amitabh Ghosh's agent and that came through. I was so I'm thinking that how to maybe talk to Amitabh once again, if you'd allow me to make it a smaller play, like in terms of like 5 actors playing all the characters, or as I saw when Peter Brook did Hamlet, with seven actors only, with no scenography, only a red carpet, and choosing the black actor to do the Hamlet.
Yeah,
I think that those kind of things, but Peter Brook is huge,
you can get away with that.
He can do whatever he want. He can go to any theater and say, this theater, I want to do theater here, and the city council will change it, will allow. But I think the young theater worker were coming. I think that to me, I'm 59 now. So I was thinking new ways to work out, and this is one, smaller spaces, a smaller community, don't overburden with the silver production cost. But it is also not street theater. Sometimes it's not all the answers are there in street theater. Is that not possible?
Yeah.
So I think that we have to find out this maybe a very controlled zone for certain spaces where 20 people, 30 people, 40 people can sit and watch, and they can go back and they can tell other people in the community to come. So this is one way as of now we are looking at, as because the bigger money, the bigger circuits are involved in something completely different. Their focus is completely different.
I could talk with you all day.
Yeah.
This it's just like our last conversation where we just kept on going and we wanted to talk more. I don't, only because of the time limit of the podcast, but seriously, I appreciate you reaching out to me and saying, hey, and that was literally all it took. And then here we are. I hope we can meet. I hope we can meet soon.
Yes.
And as Jean-Guy wants, let's do something together. Let's figure something out.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice talking to you.
You as well. If this episode gave you any insight, inspiration, or even just made you smile, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts for more conversations like this. And if you're looking for guidance with a creative challenge or want to advance a dream of your own, we'd love to help. Visit boardofdirectors.world. The Board of Directors is a global constellation of theater directors dedicated to building community, sharing knowledge, and transforming the role of the director in the 21st century. We convene and curate a fellowship that fosters mentorship, artistic inquiry, and collective care, transcending borders and institutions and traditions. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other.